This is command. Command is where you're going to input your opportunities. First, we're going to click on contacts. This is going to take us into a contact database where we can input our clients. So now that we've loaded up our contacts tab, we're going to add a contact. If they're not already in your system, if they are, great, update it, just make sure of it. We're going to act like they're. We have Mr. Buyer and his wife, Mrs. Buyer. We're going to add as a spouse. So that way they're in the system. Their email is mbuyer@buyer.com. Make sure you have their correct phone number. If they're a lead source, select from the list of where the lead came from, or if they were a referral from a different contact of yours, make sure you identify where the lead came from. If they are a lead, meaning you have their information but they have not talked to you, click mark or add them to your sales pipeline, which we're going to do now because we have an opportunity. The tag we have here, we're going to put together. I'm just going to make a tag called test. Notice how I'm making a custom tag, and I'm going to add it. Make a tag so you can find them. Either they came from a church group, a work group, or anything like that, so you can help bundle your people together. You can also put buyers. So additional contact information is important because we want to know if they have another email, phone number, and what their preferred method of contact is. Their street address, which could be anything. I'm actually just going to put a normal address in there so we have an address in the system. So North Business Park Drive. Perfect. That is the same as their mailing address. About them, their birthday, which is always good to have. We want to make sure we get their birthdays and what company they work for, and create. Since we've selected part of our sales pipeline, it's going to bring us to our sales pipeline where we're going to create an opportunity. From here, we're going to select buyer because our buyers are there. So we're going to find Mr. Buyer and not Mr. Davis. We want Mr. Buyer, and then it's automatically going to match Mrs. Buyer as a related contact. The opportunity name is we're going to put the address, and that's 123 Main Street. If there's a tag on the opportunity, we can identify which lender it's going to, if it's a referral or other ideas that you can help track your deals that way. Now we're going to select our estimated close date, which is going to be the end of next month. Our time frame is 1 month. Our budget is $250,000 and a commission percentage of 3%. This is the commission rate you would expect to receive, not the entirety. The opportunity phase is where we can collect it now. Cultivating is when you first get their information and we're building it. Appointment is you're setting your appointment to meet and talk about the buying cycle. And active meaning that you're actively out searching for homes. And the stage being watch, credit plan, nurture, or hot, you want to make sure you put in the right one. We're going to act as though we are ready to write a contract. So we're out showing houses. So I'm going to make this active and showing. So when I hit create, it's going to take me into the opportunity timeline where I can edit the general information, making sure the opportunity name is there, the contact name are there, the time frame. Now we're going to select when did we schedule the first appointment? Well, we scheduled the appointment to talk to them yesterday, and we have the appointment this morning. They're ready to write an offer. The next three are when we're going to fill in about the offer. Now we select our finance type. We know that we're going to be using an FHA loan. Click save. Next, we need to put in the property details. So we're going to select our property in Arizona. It's the United States. Address is 123. We're just going to pick one. Even though we said it was Main Street before, we're just going to pick something so it actually brings up information for Arizona. And that saves the property information. If you want to put a description in here, you can put notes that help out. Next, you have the buyer profile. This buyer profile here is if they've set up your mobile app and we have that information. Right now, they are not registered with a consumer platform. The most important tab you're going to have is the Documents tab. The Documents tab is going to give you all the information you need, but we need to select the right checklist first. Over here, we're going to click checklist. Either it's a new construction or it's a resale deal. This one happens to be a resale. So we can see here that we have our consultation folder, our closed folder, and the under contract folder. I do apologize, they are out of order. The consultation ones we're going to focus on first, and it's going to give us the required documentation that we need for the file, and they're going to be highlighted with required. Being the buyer broker agreement is optional, I would challenge you to make that mandatory for your dealings. Conditionally required just means if indeed it is one of these conditions that you will need that documentation. So if they're using a power of attorney, a trustee, or an authorized sale, you need that form. If it's an LLC or a corporation, you need that form to identify the buyers. So now that we have all of this information, we need to make sure that we have our DocuSign set up. So we're going to go into starting a transaction. We're going to click DocuSign. Please refer to your tech training if your DocuSign is not correctly connected. We're going to log into DocuSign. From here, it should take us right into our account and log right in. If you haven't had that information, check for your Keller Cloud email setup to have that. But right here, we can see right away it's the room name is the opportunity name that we gave it, 123 Main Street, even though the house is a different number. We have details, documents, peoples, envelopes, messages, and history. Right now, we are logging into our DocuSign so that we can add documents to the folder. Click on Add, Document Forms, DocuSign Forms, and that's going to give us all of the form libraries that we can use. So in the form libraries, we're going to select first Keller Williams AZ, whichever market center you're out of, so that we can get our ABA. We're going to add it. Next, we're going to go back into our file, and we're going to click DocuSign Forms again, and we're going to bring up the AAR documents, Arizona Association of Realtors, and we're going to go through and select all the documentation that we need to help put together a buyer presentation and offer packet. So we are going to need to start with, we're going to just go through, we need the buyer advisory, the buyer broker exclusive employment. The critical dates list is really important to have so you know which dates and timelines are there. If the property has an HOA, you're going to need an HOA form if it's not represented online already. If it's lead-based paint, you want to make sure you have that information as well. We're going to imagine this property was built in 1990, so it is beyond 1978. You need the market conditions advisory, and as we scroll down, we'll find the rest. On-site wastewater is in the event that it has a septic system. A pre-qualification form if you don't have that from the lender automatically. You need a real estate election and disclosure, which is called the READY form. You want to make sure you select the one for buyer. You'll need the residential purchase contract. If there is a solar lease on the property, you want to make sure you have the right solar addendum. And then lastly, we have our wire fraud, but make sure you select the one that's for buyers. And we're going to add. These will add all of our documents into our DocuSign room. Now, yours may look like this to start with. For myself, I use this format so that I have a little bit easier way of looking at it. And I know which ones are forms so I can fill them out versus PDFs or other documentation. If a document was represented on the MLS, like the lead-based paint or the airport addendum or any other forms that were listed online, you can pull that information, download it, and just upload it right into your form here. I'm just going to act like this form here. We just click and drag and drop, and then you'll see that it's a PDF, not a fillable form. So we are going to start in order. So your buyer advisory, just click on these documents to make sure you're familiar with what they are. And you're going to go all the way to the bottom, the buyer advisory. And you'll notice where the buyer needs to sign. There's nothing to fill out on the buyer advisory. So we're going to close this out. Next, we have the buyer broker exclusive employment agreement. This is important because this ties the buyer to you with an employment contract. So you want to make sure your buyer's names are at the top. Your firm is Keller Williams Southern Arizona, not Keller Williams Realty. This term is to commence on whatever day we're signing our document. So we're going to go to 1/15/2021 and to expire upon a date that you choose in the future. We are going to select residential because this is for residential. If it's a land or commercial property, make sure you select accordingly. The agency relationship is as set forth in the real estate election and disclosure form. If there's a retainer fee being paid, you're going to outline this information here. But important, you want to put on line 28 that you're going to be compensated 3% of the sales price. Plus, I would like you to put in your additional compensation to cover your administrative costs. This 190 represents the 125 transaction fee plus the $65 errors and omissions insurance, That way it's being passed through to your buyers. The buyer agrees to pay such compensation that within 30, 60, 90 days, whatever you put on here of the agreement, and they've entered into a contract on a property you showed them, you will be paid your commission.
And lastly, you want to make sure that you fill out and sign the documentation at the bottom here. So buyers are going to sign, put the buyer's address, and then you as the agent will sign in the agreement, making it a binding contract. Next, we have our critical dates list. The critical dates list is important because it's going to help you keep track of where you need to be in your transaction and the timelines of each step of the way. It's really good because it'll give you all the information you have of all parties involved in the transaction, including due dates and date completed, so you can keep yourself on track and making sure the documents get where they need to go and the times they need to get there. As we move on our list, we're going to go to the HOA addendum. If needed, this information will be located within the MLS that you can pull and call. More than likely, it's going to be represented in the Documents tab of the MLS. And you can find that by going into the MLS. So here's your report. At the top, you'll look for Documents, and then you'll have your HOA addendum, your lead-based paint addendum, and any other addendum that's incorporated to the purchase of this property. So make sure that you have the correct information from the MLS input that you would need. So when we have an HOA addendum, we're going to download it, which you probably didn't see on the screen, and then we're going to go to our files and then just bring it into our computer and then drag and drop it so that it's represented inside of our DocuSign. We can select it. Now that our system has uploaded the HOA addendum that we pulled in from the MLS, we can take a look at it and go over the information. Mind you, this is going to have information that doesn't pertain to our deal, but it's still going to be relevant. You're going to have the seller's information, the property address, and the date that they filled out the HOA. You want to be mindful of what the HOA information entails. So the HOA association, who the contact person is, their phone number, the amount of the dues, and how often they're paid. If there's a master association or any other things there, you want to be abreast of that. So you're going to have the transfer fees, the capital improvement fees, and capital improvement could include, percentages of sales price, like in communities like Rancho Cerrita and Salvarita. They have communities out there that charge 1% of the sales price as a capital improvement fee. So you want to be mindful of who's going to be paying for all this. So we can see anything that's listed out. If you get a blank version of the HOA, or there's not an HOA represented, you're going to put the seller's name, the address, today's date, leave it all blank. And then on page 3, you're going to fill in the buyer's name and then have the seller pay for it all. Now, if the information is represented like it is here, we can go through on page 3 and put our buyer's name, identify in the negotiations who's going to pay or pay for things, buyers or sellers or both. When we get to the signing factor of things, we'll be able to identify these through check marks and then have our buyers sign it and submit it with our purchase offers. Moving on, the market conditions advisory is just a form that needs to be signed. This lets the buyers know that we can't control the market. So we just make sure that their name is printed there, and then they'll have a spot to sign above it. The real estate election and disclosure for your buyer, it's going to be selected information. And as we're filling it out, we're just going to make sure that the firm name, again, is Keller Williams Southern Arizona, and acting through you as the agent. When we go to put on representative check boxes, we need to make sure we mark box 34 and box 36, and ensuring that box 45 is correctly marked for buyers. Save and close. Next, we're gonna skip over the residential purchase contract because that's going to be a bigger form. We're going to go to the wire fraud advisory, which is going to go on everything, which is simply them signing that they want to make sure that they're not sending their information. So making sure their names are correctly lined out, and then they sign, save and close. And lastly is the ABA. This is the Keller Williams ABA. This is the affiliated business author, agreement, just letting us know that we have an arrangement with Catalina Title and other areas that we do profit off of that. So make sure you put the date, the client's name, the correct property address, and then they will sign and date, save and close. Let's jump into the residential purchase contract. I will also upload into the shared drive a formed contract that has all the notes put on it for you, but we're going to go over those things right now. Make sure they read the first page and let them know they are entering into a legally binding agreement. It's important that we have the buyer's names up here. So Mr. and Mrs. Buyer. So Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer. The sellers, if we know the seller's name from the assessor's information, make sure you put it here. If not, we're going to check mark this box. Then we have the property address. The assessor's number is located on the MLS in the report. Your tax code right here. So your tax code, your assessor's number, your parcel ID are all the same information. Parcel search, and then we can do taxpayer name, street address, or parcel code. So because we know the street address, we're going to click it, and then we're going to select the correct street. We're just going to use one. And then at the top, we'll give us our parcel number. and the legal description. We're going to need both of those here soon. So make sure we put in the correct parcels number, the correct city, correct county, and the correct zip code. The legal description, like we said, was listed out on the parcel detail. I would not always trust your legal description that's listed here in the listing because sometimes those are wrong. So you want to make sure you got the most accurate, but the one in the listing should be good. Just always double check. Now we have our full purchase price. This is the offer amount that we're making on the property. Next is the earnest money. This is the amount that you guys have agreed upon. It's typically the cost of ownership that we have the property under contract. This one will be about $2,000 in earnest money. And we're going to tell them what we want the earnest money to go. We want the earnest money to be deposited, be applied towards the down payment at this close of escrow. Now we need to factor in our down payment. Since we're doing an FHA loan, we need to have 3.5% down. So we needed $250,000 times 3.5% brings us to $8,750 minus the $2,000 we've already there. So we need to have $6,750 of additional down payment to be deposited at the close of escrow. And lastly, we have line 13, which is where we're going to do our math, which brings us to a total contract amount of $241,250 of a new loan as defined in section 2H. And I'll show you that, guys, in a second. So earnest money is going to be a personal check or a wire transfer or other, making sure you communicate that with your buyers and deliver to the escrow company as soon as we get the offer accepted. We want to make sure we select the correct closing date. So this will be March 1st, 2021. If you are doing a deal, communicate with your lender and find out exactly how long they need for closing. If it's a USDA loan or a USAA loan, make sure you give them at least 40 to 45 days. All right, possession will be at the close of escrow unless otherwise identified. We tend not to mark anything. And here in section 1F, we need to make sure we have the correct addenda incorporated. If the buyer contingency, which means they have to sell the house that they're living in before they can buy another one, if there's a well on it, if there's an HOA, which we know, if it was built in 1977 or older, if there's a loan assumption, if it has a septic system, if it's seller financing, short sale, solar lease, or other, we need to make sure we select the correct addenda so that the buyer and the seller know that these addendum were incorporated in the sale or the purchase offer. Next, we move into our refrigerator, washer, and dryer. We're going to ask the seller to leave them, but we're going to make sure that we describe them in detail. So we want a side-by-side stainless steel Samsung. If you know the model number, great, because you took those notes when you were there. Or you have a white top load GE or a white front load LG. If you know the model number, fantastic. Otherwise, give a depiction. Do not write as seen on this date or just leave it blank. You want to make sure that you have the correct information there, because if there's two refrigerators in the house, we'd hate for them to leave the other one and take the expensive one. Now we get to the financing part. Section 2H, like we said before, up here at top, we're going to identify the new loan as defined in Section 2H. If you remember from before, we are doing an FHA loan, so we need to select FHA. But if you're not, you make sure you select the correct one. 2J is important because if the sellers need sellers or the buyers need sellers concessions, we need to make sure we identify those here. And that could be the form of a percentage or a dollar amount. I will challenge you to get the exact dollar amount from the lender, because 3% of $250,000 is way more than what's needed. So we don't want to jeopardize your guys' offer. If you need it, great, ask for the exact amount. Otherwise, let's try not to need it and make our offers as strong as possible. Now we're going to select who pays for the appraisal, who our title and escrow company is going to be. If it's listed in the MLS, make sure you use the one that they're asking for us to give your offer a little bit more chance of survival. But here we're just going to select title and escrow, and then their address, their city, their state, their zip, and their email and phone. Make sure you fill this information out with the correct information of the title person you're using. we're going to skip on down past all this stuff. So lead-based paint for 4D, if the lead-based paint is there, so the house is built in 1977 or earlier, so it's older than 1977, you need to make sure that if the lead-based paint disclosure was given there, we mark 73. If it was not, we mark 75, and then have the buyer initial the correct area. On lines 211, we're going to write the word none because no representation of warranties has been given. On section 6 is our inspection period. We've given them 10 days, otherwise explain. If we need more, we put more here. If we want to go less and give our offer a little bit more chance of survival, great. Up to you in a conversation with you and your buyers. We need to find out if it's got a sewer or septic or alternative system. And then this is the response time for such disapprovals. Now we move into home warranty. If a home warranty will be ordered, who's going to order it? Buyer or seller? Always order it by the buyer. Don't give the seller or buyer's contact information. What additional coverages? Pool, equipment. Issued by what company? 210, American Home Shield, Fidelity, Old Dominion. Find out which one you're going to use and get the exact cost at a cost of not to exceed whatever that's going to be. And then who's paying for it? The buyer, the seller, or split between the two. If no pool or if no home warranty is being provided, we just click the box on 296, but the buyer needs to initial either way. Additional terms and conditions. This is where you're going to put on there if the buyer is related to you or the seller is related to their agent or any other disclosures we need to give that are clear. Or if you're using an escalation clause, this is where you're going to put it. Be careful in putting anything on the blank pages of death because we want to make sure that we keep ourselves legally compliant. And the best way to do that is with pre-written forms that have already been scrubbed by our lawyers. 434 is a place that most people miss out on the initials because we want to make sure they have to get initialed here. Another place that we kind of highlighted quickly is they need to initial all 3 of the boxes between 6F and 6I. We're going to give them a response time that we want to hear back from them while the offer is valid. So typically it's 24 hours. If you're signing a purchase contract at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, do not give them until 8 p.m. the same night. You won't get it back and you'll piss people off. Have a communication with the listing agent and find out what's realistic so that you can get a correct response time and then fill it out here. By the date, at what time, AM or PM. Fill in your information. So this is agent information, your MLS code, which is the MLS number you use to log in, and your state license number. Now, what's really cool is if you don't know this information, you can go into your MLS, which will be your quick search menu here. You'll see this. You can just type your name at the top. And what it'll do is it'll pop up in the quick search, as soon as it's done thinking, your information. So you click on that and bring it up in a new tab. And you'll see your license number, your short ID, your office ID, and your office license number. All of that information is needed right here. So you've got your short ID, MLS code, your agent ID, the office name, your firm name again is Keller Williams, Southern Arizona. Our firm code for my office is 478306. Depending on what yours pulls up, you want to make sure you use the right one. And then all you have to do is copy and paste your license information for the state. And then the address. Now, when it asks for preferred telephone number, this is going to be your phone number that you can communicate with. If you have a fax number, use it, and the email address that you are legally saying that you will answer and communicate with the other agents. And select the correct agency confirmation. Either you're representing the buyer, the seller, or both. When it says both, if one Keller Williams agent is the buyer and the other listing agent is also a Keller Williams agent, then it will be both because it's dual agency, regardless if it's the same agent or not. If it's the same broker, it's the same agency. So in this one, we're going to do buyer. And then on the seller's acceptance, the broker on behalf of the seller is the information you're going to find here. We're just going to go to one that's not me. And down at the bottom, you'll find all of the listing agent information. You may not have their office address, and that's okay, but at least fill out the listing agent, co-agent information, because you can type in this form, and once you send it, they cannot fill it in. So type it in for them. It takes you a couple of minutes. It takes them a whole lot longer, and it's way more professional to do so. And then select seller on their behalf so you know it's done. Your buyer is going to sign on the buyer signature, and then we're going to send it off to the listing agent. Save and close. All right. Now that we've got everything signed and we're ready, everything filled out, we're ready to get it signed. So we're going to select all the documents that we want to have our buyer sign for this offer. So reviewing your checklist to make sure you have the documents you need. So under contract, you need to make sure you have those and all your consultation documents. We're going to have it checked out. The one form we don't have right now that we definitely need is the pre-qualification form that we get from the lender, and it needs to be issued with all of our deals. So we haven't gotten it back from the lender yet, so we're just going to add one. And you can type up here, pre-qual. It's a lot faster than, so if you've got a list of documents, you can search for them quickly. So I'm going to select all and then deselect the HOA because we brought in the PDF and the critical dates list because the buyer doesn't need to sign them. Now we're going to go up here. Now that we have things selected, we're going to click the pen icon to create a signing envelope for all of these documents. All right. The signing envelope is created, and you'll see the documents that are included in it. And you can change the envelope name to initial offer so you know which envelope it is. And then down here, we need to add who's going to be signing in the envelope. And all we have to do is click add recipients. We can do room participations or pre-tagged roles if you filled out the details, but room participations is easy. So you've got the agent because you need to sign the buyer broker, and then Mr. Buyer and Mrs. Buyer. Select. You'll notice that Mr. Buyer has his email and Mrs. Buyer doesn't. So we need to fill in Mrs. Buyer's email. It's easy because they have a very similar email. It's mrsbuyer@buyer.com. They're all set up to sign in first position, meaning that they're all going to get the documents at the same time. I recommend that you always, as the agent, sign first and then have your buyers sign second or your sellers sign second. That way, when you're signing it and you find something that's wrong, you can cancel the signing, go back and fix it before your buyers ever get the wrong documents. So now we've got all the documents we need signed. We have the parties that need to sign them. And then we have an email that says, please DocuSign. And you can put a message in there. This is the initial offer package. Again, my fingers are working faster than my head. Now we're going to go to next. What that's going to do, it's going to queue up all the documents that we need to have signed so that we can have them signed and sent over to the listing agent. On the left side of the screen here, you're going to see a drop down with the 3 people that need to sign. You'll have all the signing tools and the different documents in place here. You'll notice each document has its own tab, so you can go back to each document. So we're going to start off with the HOA. The cool thing about the HOA is the seller's already signed the front page. Make sure your buyers are aware of what's on there. And then the buyers are going to be signing the second page. So we need to add their names, Mr. Buyer. So we're going to click and drag his name and his signature. So we're going to click signature and the date. Now we need to do Mrs. Buyer. I grabbed her signature first. So we're going to do signature, date signed, and then we can put her written name there. And then we're going to add ourselves, go to our agent. We are going to identify who's going to pay. So we add a checkbox, and we're going to ask the seller to pay and put a check. Just hit spacebar to make the check go. Or if we're going to put in here, we can do other. And then in the text box over here, we can type to be split 50-50. And then grab your text box and make sure it fits on the line. That way we have those identified. This way it'll be filled in because you or the agent are signing first before your buyers ever see it. And on other fees, we're going to put another text box there, and we're going to type in our box over here, if any, seller pays. And this just covers your buyers in the event that anything else pops up. They have this on the documentation. This is going to be our offer, and if the seller agrees, they're going to sign here. Now we go to the next form, which is one of the documents I just put in there to prove. So we got the buyer advisory. We can go to the back page of the buyer advisory because that's where they need to sign. We can select Mr. Buyer, grab his signature and date. And then we got Mrs. Buyer's signature and date. A lot of people will go through and do the entire document bundle with one signature and then go back, but I recommend going form by form so that you can fill it out as you go. So your buyer broker, same thing. You got Mrs. Buyer's signature, so we want to keep them in order. She's been signing second this whole time, so we're going to put her second. And then we switch back to Mr. Buyer. He signs here. And then if you forgot to type in the address here, you can put a text field for them to fill in their address. And just put a text box on each of the areas that needs information so that they get queued up to fill it in. You can fill in the information with your own text box, or you can have your buyers do it. It's up to you. And then you as an agent need to sign and date. Next, we have the ABA. You can put the date on there and the names. Again, let's let the system do the work for you. Put a name, put a date, have them fill in the address, or you, it's up to you. You can actually fill this in right now for them, 123 Main Street, and then have them sign in order. Market condition advisory, I don't know why the sample form's popping up, but I will find out. But the buyers are going to sign. Again, we can just put buyer signature, buyer name, date signed. Buyer signature, date signed, buyer name. The pre-qualification form should be filled out, so we're going to imagine that it's already filled out by the loan officer. So they would sign down here at the bottom, acknowledging that it's been filled out. If it's not filled out, then you would check box number 3 and have your buyer sign here, but that would make you have a very weak offer position. Real estate election and disclosure, like I said, we needed to put some check boxes on there. So as the agent, we're going to take a check box and we're going to put it on line 34 and a check box on line 36. Now, you can do this as read only so that all they know is they can look at it and it can't be changed, or you can make it so they can change it and then have your buyers sign. Sign and date. Sign and date. Now we get to the next form, which is the contract. This is the important part. So every page, you want to make sure that you're looking for all the locations and double check all the information that we typed in there to make sure we have the correct check boxes marked. And if they're not marked, get them filled in. HOA is filled in, and then your buyers are going to initial every page. Again, double checking information, and buyers are going to initial. So what I'll do on this, instead of clicking back and forth and starting with the buyer 1 and buyer 2 the whole time, I'll just, who's logged in, I'll start with their checking information, and then I'll just, like Mrs. Buyer was up, so I'll just do her initials and then do his initials. Whatever works for you, do it. Make sure that you follow it every time. And then the lead-based paint, we want to make sure that they're signing the correct one. This house was built in the 90s, so it was 1978 or later, not prior to. And we don't have to worry about the lead-based paint at all. Boring part of doing all this is having it set up. Eventually we'll have templates where it'll automatically put in this information, where the signings will have pre-signed locations. But this is just the default way to let you know where you need to have signatures and initials so that you are covered compliant wise, and that everything needs to be where it's at. It takes about 5 minutes. So again, on the buyer, the home warranty, we want to make sure the buyer's initial correctly. And then notice how there was no checkbox. So us as an agent, we need to go put a checkbox. Blank pages of death, still need some initials at the bottom, even though there's nothing there. And then the last one that I just double check, make sure you get them, is the release of broker information, so that you don't miss a silly signature like that. You should have read the contract multiple times before ever submitting it, so that you're familiar with each of the areas are. And then this should be filled in, but if it's not, we want to put the correct response time in here. So we're going to add a text box. We want them to respond by, so we're going to put text in here. We're going to put January, today's the 15th, so 16th. We're going to put another text box, make it a little smaller, 2021. And then another checkbox over here, AM and PM. We're going to check at 5. And then we can put a checkbox, because typically there's going to be a box there, 5 PM. And then lastly, you would have all your information filled out, and your buyers need to sign here, put in their address, their name, city, state, and zip. Again, if you have all this information, you can pre-fill it out for them so that all they have to do is sign. The easier you make it for your clients, the better off you are. So I recommend having all that information filled out already, or at least putting it in right here when you're doing your signing docs so that they don't have to, and it just makes life easier. All right, that's it for the there. Now we go to the wire fraud advisory, which will make sure their names are represented, and we have signatures in the correct order. Now we've reached the rest of our documents. So what we're going to do is we're going to click send. And what that's going to do is it's going to send the forms to each of the emails to be signed and filled out by the parties in the order that we've sent them. Boom, done. Awesome. Now we're going to skip forward and we're going to make believe that the offer, we've got the documents back and we're ready to submit the offer. So we need to select the forms, the correct forms that need to be in the offer. And so that's going to be your HOA agreement, your purchase contract, and your pre-qual, or any other documents that need. So if there's a well water, septic, airplane addendum, any of those things, make sure you send them at the same time. Click the correct documents, click download. It'll download all the documents into a single zip file. And then you can send that off to the listing agent with a really nice email or cover letter to submit your offer to your clients. Congratulations on writing your first offer or your third offer. Whatever offer this is, congratulations on writing an offer. Congratulations on writing an offer. Now, we're going to skip ahead and we're going to act like the offer was accepted. So what we need to do, we need to go back into command. So now we're back into command. We're going to go to our opportunities tab. You're going to create your opportunities in the team opportunity. You'll make sure you have the team opportunity up there. So we're going to, sorry, opportunities. It'll say your opportunities, it'll be team opportunities, your opportunity. All your opportunities should be in the team opportunity so that I can oversee them and help you work them. But you're going to go down to your buyers because we know they're active. So we've got Mr. and Mrs. Buyer at 123 Main Street, and we've already got under contract. So we said, yep, they're good. We're in negotiations. So we're going to click and drag and drop it into under contract. Now we have our inspections, but we're going to go in there and create our compliance folder. So we go in there, details, we're going to go into documents, and we are going to upload all the documents into the correct areas If they're already in DocuSign form signed, you can click on the consultation form, attach multiple files, select DocuSign, and then we can bring in all of the different folder signed items. Just make sure you have them labeled correctly so you can find them. So we can go to the ABA, we can do the agency real estate election and disclosure, buyer advisory, or sorry, buyer advisory, not buyer broker, buyer advisory, wire fraud advisory, market conditions advisory, buyer broker agreement. Even though it says optional, I would make you make that mandatory for yourself in any other document, and then click attach. And what that's going to do, it's going to attach all those documents at once. And once you have a document attached, it's going to allow you to submit it to the Market Center. So when you submit to the Market Center, it submits it for review. So go ahead and click submit. I'm not going to, because I don't need to send this off to the broker right now, but you'd click submit, and then that would submit your consultation folder. If you do your consultation before you write a purchase contract, make sure you get your consultation uploaded and submitted if you have a buyer broker signed. That is a contract that needs to be submitted to the Market Center within 72 hours, so make sure you do that. But we're going to go under contract, and we're going to select all the other files. Again, attach multiple files, go to DocuSign, and then we're going to bring in everything that we have that's already signed. So you've got your, where is it? Purchase contract, residential purchase contract. If there are any counter offers back and forth, your pre-qualification form signed by the buyers, earnest money receipt. If you have it, you can bring it in for your email, or you can bring it from your hard drive, lead-based paint, and just anything that's required, we need to make sure we get in there. But most importantly, it's the residential purchase contract and any addendum or counter offers that are included in that offer, and click attach. And now, because we've attached the documents, we have to hit submit again because it's a different checklist. We need to submit it to the Market Center as well. Great. Everything's submitted, you're compliant, and as you go through your deal, make sure you put in the rest of the documentations it needed and have that order and file. And now we need to make sure you can get paid. So we're going to click on the offers tab. Right now there's no offers in there, so we're going to add a new offer, and this offer is going to be your accepted offer. If you've had multiple offers, it's good to have them in here so you can keep track of what you've submitted. But this one's just important because the offer date was today. We're going to close at the end of February, and the property address, we're just going to select because it'll be whatever address you have. Now we go to the parties. So we have Mr. Buyer and Mrs. Buyer. Their address, if you have it, if they're pre-qualified or pre-approved. Representative's name, that's you. Now the seller, you've got Mrs. Seller. Her email, if you have it. Most times you don't. And then her representative. Seller's agent. That's all you need. Click next. Now we have our firm. Remember we put $6,750 down and we're financed. Oh, so it's $8,750 down, the 3.5%. So $8,750. And then we did $241,250 for a total sales price of $250,000. Earnest money we're doing is going to be $2,000, which will automatically do the percentage for you. The option fee we don't have here in Arizona, but we will here. The termination option, it's 10 days after contract acceptance is our inspection period. The seller will contribute $5,400 towards a settlement contract, or sorry, to a residential service contract. I got them backwards. So we've got $780 for our home warranty and $5,400 to your settlement cost. Agent analysis, you can do your pros and cons and summary. This is set up for when you're a listing agent, you fill in all this information and you can give your clients a rundown of each offer that you received. And so they have pros and cons and a summary of each one. Click save. Now we have the offer in the offer timeline. We can see who submitted it, if they're pre-approved or pre-qualified, and then total information at a glance. So now that we know this offer is accepted, we're going to click accept it. And by doing so, it's going to open up the commissions tab. We're going to go into the commissions tab. It's going to automatically bring in the sales price that we have outlined in the previous page. 3% commission, total commission amount, total unit amount, close date on 21st. It is missing the contract date. So we need to go to edit general information. And our contract date is the day that it was accepted and returned, which happened to be today. Save changes. Now we have the information needed there. If you are on this deal by yourself, you'll pop up here and it'll have all the information and auto breakouts for you. But because we're in coaching, we need to add me to the coaching program, so you can search for the name. Dan Caldwell. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm already on there. So I'm just going to put a different one on there for now. I'm going to put David Jones. The unit's going to be 0. And then the agent compensation, it's 10% of the gross. So right off the top. And then the rest of it will be calculated by the MCA department. But make sure you don't put an agent number for units, because you did the deal. We want to make sure that that unit stays the same. So, and it'll bring it over here that you'll have your agent to pay, because they're no longer taking the coaching fees out. They're doing it during the DA process. It's that simple. It's all filled out. If you had any bonus on there, like the additional commission to cover administrative costs, like we put in our buyer broker, we're going to click edit agent payment. We're going to add an item. We're going to add bonus of whatever that bonus needs to be, and split with Market Center or not, and click add. And then it adds it, and you'll see over here where we have the bonus, which is the administrative bonus, also known as the additional commission to cover administrative costs, lined out here so the total compensation is correctly identified, and then hit submit to the Market Center. Then as they do it, you're going to get a notification up top here where it has all of the documentation from your notifications will be here. And when you get the DA, also known as your commissions instructions, your green sheet, your distribution authorization, in the under contract folder, down here towards the bottom, you'll see distribution authorization, a DA, that needs to be sent to escrow. You'll download it and send it to your title lady or gentleman. And that is how you do your commissions. And as documents come in, please update them and upload them, and well on your way to closing.